The room went still the moment the words left his mouth. Forks clinked against fine china, conversations stalled mid-breath, and every jeweled gaze in that glittering hall turned toward him. "She's with me," Daniel said again, steady, calm, like a man used to storms and silence. Not chandeliers and crystal. Olivia Grant, the billionaire heiress whose name carried weight from Boston to San Francisco, stood frozen at his side. Her hand trembled near the stem of her glass, but her eyes were fixed on him. The society crowd, painted in velvet and arrogance, gawked as though a barn hand had wandered onto their stage play. And maybe he had. A single father in a suit borrowed from a friend, boots scuffed beneath the linen-draped table. But his voice, his presence, cut sharper than all their whispers. The host stammered, a half-laugh breaking the tension. "Mr. Daniel, is it? Surely you're mistaken." "Miss Grant's seat." Daniel's jaw tightened. He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. His hand rested on the chair beside him, the quietest of claims. No mistake. Olivia's chest rose, her pulse a drum in her ears. No one had ever spoken for her like that. Not her late father, not her polished suitors, not even the men who wanted her name more than her heart. But Daniel, a man with nothing to gain, had said it plain, and in that moment, before the crowd could recover, before Olivia could decide if she should run or stay, the hall became a battleground, not of guns and knives, but of pride, money, and the unshakable truth of a single father daring to draw a line. But to understand how they reached this table, how a ranch-born man and a billionaire's daughter found themselves tested under chandeliers and scorn, we have to go back to the dust, the long roads, and the moment their worlds first collided. The town always talked about Olivia Grant. Some said she was too polished for a place like this, that she carried the city in her walk, the steel of her family fortune in her smile. Others whispered she was lonely, her wealth a cage no one dared open. But none of them expected her to notice a man like Daniel. He had come to town only for supplies, flour, nails, a pair of boots for his boy whose toes had started poking through the leather. He didn't linger in the saloon, didn't waste coins on cards or whiskey. He bought what he needed, loaded his cart, and headed back to the small ranch he worked with his own 2 hands. That day, though fate twisted the road, Olivia had stepped out of the mercantile, a paper-wrapped parcel of sugar tucked under her arm when the crowd gathered at the corner. Some accident, some commotion. She turned, just as a runaway carriage barreled down the street, a child stumbling in its path. The child was Daniel's. The world blurred for him. One heartbeat he was tying down a sack of grain. The next he was sprinting, boots hammering dirt, dust flying behind him. He scooped his boy into his arms just as the carriage whipped past, wheels shrieking, bystanders gasping. When the dust settled, Daniel stood tall again, chest heaving, sun safe against him. He thought that was the end of it. Just another day, another close call, but Olivia was watching. Their eyes met across the road, hers wide with shock, his guarded, worn from too many storms. She saw more than a poor rancher then. She saw a father who carried the weight of the world in silence. Later, when she found herself sitting across from him at a town gathering, she couldn't forget. Neither could he. The men at the table laughed too loudly, their suits pressed, their glasses full. They saw Daniel as an intruder, a misplaced hand among polished silver. But Olivia's gaze never wavered. She had seen the man who risked himself without thought, who moved with strength born of necessity, not vanity. When one of the merchants sneered, "At this table's reserved for folks who belong here," Daniel had already started to rise, ready to take his boy and leave quietly. That was when Olivia's hand touched his arm. Her voice, soft but steady, cut through the noise. "He belongs here more than any of you." The hall went silent. Daniel froze. His son blinked between them, and the crowd, hungry for scandal, leaned in. It was then Daniel spoke, his voice calm, firm. "A shield against every eye in the room. She's with me." The words landed like thunder. Olivia's heart jolted. She stood frozen, her world spinning, realizing that for once, someone wasn't afraid to stand with her. Someone who wanted nothing but the truth. And in that fragile, dangerous moment, something began, something the whole town would talk about long after the candles burned low. The backlash came swift, as Daniel knew it would. By the next morning, whispers raced through town like wildfire. The blacksmith's wife told the grocer told the banker, and by sundown, every parlor and porch hummed with the same story, the poor rancher who dared to claim the Grant heiress in front of half the county. Men spat his name like a curse. "He's after her money." Women hissed it like a warning. "She's lost her senses." And through it all, Daniel kept his head down, his boy close, his work steady. He'd learned long ago that a man could survive almost anything if he just kept moving. But survival wasn't the same as peace. He felt it in the silence at the feed store, where men who once nodded now looked through him. He felt it in the stares when he tied his horse outside the saloon. And he felt it most when his son asked, "Daddy, why is everyone looking at us like we did something wrong?" Daniel had no answer that wouldn't scar the boy, so he just ruffled his hair and said, "Some folks just don't understand yet." Olivia, though, understood perfectly. When she entered the dining hall again, heads turned sharper than knives. Old friends avoided her gaze. Suitors who once tripped over themselves to earn her attention now looked on with thin-lipped disapproval. Yet she carried herself with the same poise as always, until her eyes found Daniel. That night, she approached him outside the mercantile. No crowd, no chandeliers, just the quiet of the dirt road under a rising moon. "You regret saying it, don't you?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "No, I regret that you're paying the price for it." Her smile was sad but fierce. "Let them talk. They've never seen me as anything but my father's fortune. For once, I'd rather they see me standing next to a man who means what he says." Her words settled heavy on him. For a moment, Daniel wanted to believe, wanted to lean into that fire in her eyes. But the weight of years held him back. He thought of the boy asleep inside, of the ranch that barely kept them fed, of the sharp divide between their worlds. And still, something in her voice kept tugging at him. That night, as the town's whispers thickened into threats, Daniel knew he couldn't keep ignoring it. What he had said at that table was more than a defense. It was a promise, and promises always came with a cost. The days that followed pressed down heavy, yet in the quiet moments, something began to bloom between them. Olivia found reasons to visit Daniel's ranch, first with excuses about business, later with none at all. She brought books for his boy, small comforts he had never known, a warm blanket, a toy carved from wood, a sweet cake wrapped in paper. Daniel resisted at first, his pride bristling, but each time his son's face lit up, the walls around his heart cracked a little more. One evening, as the sun sank red behind the hills, Olivia lingered by the corral. Daniel was mending a fence, sleeves rolled, sweat darkening his shirt. She watched his hands, steady, worn, capable, and felt the ache of something she couldn't name. "You work until your body breaks," she murmured. He glanced up, meeting her gaze. "It's the only way things get done out here." "And when do you let someone help you?" Daniel didn't answer. He hammered another nail, jaw tight, as though admitting need was more dangerous than any outlaw. But later that night, when his boy fell asleep by the fire, Olivia sat across from him in the dim glow. For the first time, she spoke not as an heiress, not as someone from a different world, but as a woman stripped bare of titles. "My father left me everything but peace," she whispered. "Every room I walk into feels like a test. Every smile I see hides a calculation."
"And then you speak as if you don't owe anyone anything." Daniel stared into the fire, his silence heavy. "Finally," he said, "because I don't. Not anymore. Everything I owe to that boy. And I can't let anyone jeopardize that." Her eyes glistened.
"I don't want to jeopardize it."
"I want to be part of it." The words hung between them, fragile as glass.
Daniel's hand twitched, as though reaching would be too much, but too little at the same time. His heart thundered. His boy stirred in sleep, and, for one suspended moment, Daniel let the walls fall. His hand found hers across the table, rough calluses against delicate skin. No promises, no declarations, just the quiet truth of two souls who had spent too long alone. The fire popped, a log falling into embers. He didn't pull away. Neither did she. For the first time since speaking those words in the dining hall, "She's with me." Daniel felt the weight of them settle, not as a burden, but as a beginning. The storm broke one Sunday, when Daniel walked into town with Olivia and his boy at his side. The saloon doors swung wide and the murmur of talk dimmed into a sharp silence.
Eyes turned.
Men leaned back in their chairs, boots hitting the floor. Women whispered behind gloved hands. Olivia stood tall in her dress of soft blue, chin lifted though her pulse raced. Daniel's hand rested steady at the small of her back, guiding her through the room like he had no fear of them, though he felt every stare burn into him. His boy clutched her fingers as if she had always belonged. From the corner, a rancher spat tobacco into a tin.
"Never thought I'd see the day."
"Heiress playing house with a dirt farmer?" Laughter followed, sharp and cruel. Another voice rose. "Careful, sweetheart, he'll drag you down with him." Olivia froze, breath caught. Her cheeks burned, the weight of their judgment pressing down. But before she could speak, Daniel's voice cut the room clean. "She's with me." It was steady, calm as a drawn gun, and carried louder than any shout. His boy straightened, pride shining in his eyes. Olivia's heart skipped. This time, those words weren't a shield, they were a vow. The rancher sneered. "Big words, Daniels." "But men like you don't keep women like her." Daniels stepped forward, his shadow long across the floorboards. "I don't need to keep her. She chooses where she stands. And today, she stands here." All eyes turned to Olivia. The world held its breath, her voice trembled, but her spirit did not. "I am here."
"And I'm not leaving." The room shifted.
Some scoffed, some looked away, but others nodded, quiet respect flickering in their eyes, not because they approved, but because they recognized something rare, truth unashamed. Daniel took Olivia's hand, not caring who saw. His boy beamed, small fingers gripping them both. And in that moment, the scorn of the town lost its teeth. Outside, sunlight poured over the dusty street, as if even the sky itself had been waiting for this choice. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel like a man carrying loss.
He felt like a man who had finally claimed his life.
And as they walked forward, together, he knew the words would never change again. "She's with me, and always would be."